In 1513, Niccolò Machiavelli sat in exile, broken and humiliated, tortured by the Medici family, stripped of his position, cast out from Florence. Most men would have surrendered. But Machiavelli did something else. He wrote, and what he wrote in that prison cell would change the understanding of power forever. But here's what they don't tell you. The Prince wasn't a book about politics. It was a manual for survival. A guide for men who refuse to be destroyed by a world that rewards weakness with chains. Tonight, you're going to learn what Machiavelli really meant. Not the sanitized version they teach in universities. The raw truth. The one that will make you dangerous in the right way. This is the Hidden Codex. Niccolò Machiavelli, 1469 to 1527. Florentine diplomat, strategist, realist. To the world, he's known as the father of political science. But that's not who he was. Machiavelli was a student of human nature. He watched men rise and fall. He saw empires crumble. He witnessed betrayal, conquest, mercy, and cruelty. And through it all, he took notes. Not about what should be, but about what is. The Prince was his conclusion, a distillation of everything he learned about power, survival, and manhood. But most people read it wrong. They think it's about manipulation. It's not. It's about reality. The reality that most men refuse to see until it destroys them. Before we go deeper into what Machiavelli discovered, if you sense there's more to strength than what modern society tells you, if you're ready to see the world as it actually operates, not as you wish it would, subscribe to the Hidden Codex. Turn on notifications, because what comes next cannot be unlearned. And most men aren't ready for that. Let's continue. Machiavelli noticed something so simple yet invisible to most. He noticed that the men who won weren't always the best men. In fact, they rarely were. The good men, the honest men, the virtuous men, they lost. Over and over again. They were betrayed, manipulated, destroyed. While the ruthless, the calculating, the strategic, they thrived. And Machiavelli asked a question that would define his entire philosophy. Why? Why does virtue lose? And what he discovered was this. The world doesn't reward what's good. It rewards what's effective. Machiavelli wrote, "A man who wishes to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him among so much that is evil." He wasn't celebrating cruelty. He was stating a fact. If you play by the rules in a world where others don't, you will be destroyed. Most men learn this too late, after they've been betrayed by someone they trusted, after they've been taken advantage of by someone they helped, after they've lost everything because they believed fairness was real. But fairness is a lie, a comforting story weak men tell themselves. Machiavelli saw through it, and he warned, if you want to survive, you must see through it too. So what does this mean in practice? Let's say you're building something, a business, a career, a reputation. Most men approach it with naive optimism. They think, if I work hard, if I'm honest, if I treat people well, I'll succeed. And what happens? Someone less skilled takes credit for their work. Someone less honest undermines them. Someone less deserving gets the position they earned. And they're left wondering why. But if you understand Machiavelli's lesson, you see it clearly. Success isn't about being the best. It's about being strategic. It's about understanding power. Not the power to hurt people. The power to protect yourself. The power to act decisively when others hesitate. The power to see reality clearly while others live in fantasy. That's what Machiavelli meant when he wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." He wasn't saying be cruel. He was saying be respected. Because love is conditional. It fades. It shifts. It disappears the moment it's inconvenient. But fear, respect, that's durable. That keeps you safe. That keeps you in control. Now here's where most people misunderstand Machiavelli completely. They think he's advocating for evil. He's not. He's advocating for strength. And in a world designed to weaken men, strength looks like rebellion. Machiavelli wrote, "Men should be either treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries but cannot do so for grave ones." Read that again. He's not saying hurt people for fun. He's saying, if you're going to act, act decisively. Half-hearted measures create enemies. Weak boundaries invite disrespect. Hesitation gets you killed. Most men today are taught the opposite. Be nice, be accommodating, avoid conflict. And what happens? They get walked over. Their kindness is mistaken for weakness. Their generosity is exploited. And when they finally stand up for themselves, they're called aggressive. Machiavelli saw this pattern 500 years ago. He saw that the men who tried to please everyone ended up pleasing no one, while the men who set clear boundaries, who acted with conviction, who refused to be disrespected, those men were followed, not because they were cruel, but because they were certain. And in an uncertain world, certainty is magnetic. Let's go deeper. Machiavelli observed something about human behavior that most people refuse to accept. He noticed that people don't respect what they can easily have. They don't value what's always available. They don't admire what bends to their will. He wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." Cold, brutal, true. He wasn't saying break your word casually. He was saying, understand that others will. And if you operate as if everyone is honest, you will be destroyed by the first liar you meet. This is where modern men fail catastrophically. They project their own morality onto others. They assume that because they wouldn't betray, others won't either. They assume that because they keep their promises, others will too. But Machiavelli understood. Most people are governed by self-interest. Not maliciously, just practically. When it benefits them to help you, they will. When it benefits them to betray you, they will. And the only way to protect yourself is to see this clearly, without bitterness, without surprise, just clear-eyed recognition. Here's a scenario. You're in a position where someone offers you a partnership. They make big promises. They talk about loyalty. They emphasize trust. Most men, if they like the person, will take them at their word. But if you understand Machiavelli, you ask different questions. Not, do I trust this person? But, what incentives does this person have? Not, are they a good person? But, what happens if it becomes more beneficial for them to leave? Because Machiavelli knew, intentions are fluid, circumstances change. And when they do, people reveal who they really are. He wrote, "Men are so simple and so subject to present necessities that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived." He wasn't mocking the deceived. He was warning them. Don't be naive. Don't assume good faith. Verify, protect, prepare. That's not cynicism. That's wisdom. Now let's address something uncomfortable. Machiavelli wrote extensively about cruelty, and people recoil. How can you advocate for cruelty? But here's what they miss. Machiavelli distinguished between two types of cruelty. Cruel actions done poorly, which create chaos and revenge, and cruel actions done well, which create order and safety. He wrote, "Cruelty well used may be called that which is done once for the need of securing oneself, and which afterwards is not persisted in." What does that mean? It means sometimes you have to be harsh. Sometimes you have to cut someone out. Sometimes you have to end something abruptly. And if you do it decisively, clearly, finally, it's over. But if you do it weakly, if you try to be nice about it, if you drag it out, trying to spare feelings, you create lingering resentment. You create false hope. You create enemies. Most men today are terrified of being harsh, so they stay in bad relationships too long. They keep toxic people around because cutting them off feels mean. They tolerate disrespect because confronting it feels aggressive. And what happens? The problem grows. The resentment builds, until finally it explodes. And everyone gets hurt worse than if it had been handled swiftly. Machiavelli saw this. He knew that delayed cruelty is worse than immediate cruelty. That dragging out pain is crueler than ending it. That sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is be ruthless. Once. Clearly. Finally, here's where Machiavelli becomes essential for modern men. We live in a world that tells us to be soft, to suppress our instincts, to apologize for our nature, to prioritize others' feelings over our own reality. And many men obey. They make themselves smaller. They dim their intensity. They apologize for their ambition. And they wonder why they feel powerless. Machiavelli would tell you, you've been domesticated, trained to be harmless, taught that strength is toxic. And the result? You're not thriving. You're surviving on someone else's terms. He wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved when one of the two must be lacking." Modern society tells you the opposite. Be agreeable, be likable, be harmless. And what happens? You're liked, but not respected. You're tolerated, but not valued. You're included, but not essential. Machiavelli knew, if you want to matter, you must be willing to be uncomfortable to others and to yourself, because comfort is the death of greatness. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Imagine you're leading a team. One person consistently underperforms. You've been patient, you've been understanding, you've given second chances, but nothing changes. Most modern men in this situation do nothing. They complain privately. They tolerate mediocrity. They hope the problem resolves itself. Why? Because they're afraid. Afraid of being disliked. Afraid of conflict. Afraid of being seen as harsh. But Machiavelli would ask, who are you serving with your fear? Not the team. They're suffering because one weak link drags everyone down, not the underperformer. You're enabling their failure, not yourself. You're compromising your standards. So who benefits? No one. But if you act decisively, if you have the difficult conversation, if you remove the person who isn't contributing, it's uncomfortable for a moment. But then, the team respects you. Standards are clear. Everyone performs better. That's Machiavellian leadership. Not cruelty. Clarity. Now here's the hardest lesson Machiavelli taught, and it's the one that separates men from boys. He wrote, "Before all else be armed." He wasn't talking about weapons. He was talking about preparedness, about strength, about the willingness to defend what's yours. Machiavelli observed that unarmed men, peaceful men, idealistic men, were always conquered, not because they were wrong, but because they were weak. And the world doesn't care about your ideals. It cares about your capacity to enforce them. Think about your own life. How many times have you been right, but powerless? How many times have you known what should happen, but couldn't make it happen? How many times have you watched someone less deserving take what should have been yours? That's what happens when you're unarmed. When you lack the strength, the skill, the strategic capability to protect what matters. Machiavelli's message is clear. Build your capacity. Develop your skills. Become formidable, not to hurt others, but so no one can hurt you. So when you need to act, you can. So when you need to protect, you're able. So when you need to enforce boundaries, you're not wishing you were stronger. Let's bring this all together. Machiavelli spent his life studying one question. Why do some men rise while others fall? And his answer was brutal in its simplicity. The men who rise see reality clearly. They don't live in fantasy. They don't operate on wishful thinking. They don't assume the world is fair. They see it as it is. Competitive, unforgiving, indifferent to your feelings. And they adapt. They develop strength. They act strategically. They set boundaries. They make hard decisions. They refuse to be victims. Meanwhile, the men who fall, they live in denial. They believe the world should be different. They expect fairness. They trust blindly. They avoid conflict. They prioritize being liked over being respected. And they wonder why they keep losing. Machiavelli wrote, "The one who adapts his policy to the times prospers, and likewise the one whose policy clashes with the demands of the times does not." Read that carefully. He's saying, the world has rules, not the rules you wish existed, the rules that actually govern success and failure. And you have two choices. Learn them and win, or ignore them and lose. So what does this mean for you? Right now, today, it means Machiavelli is asking you to wake up, to stop operating from wishful thinking, to stop assuming people will treat you fairly, to stop believing that being good is enough. It's not. Being good makes you feel virtuous, but it doesn't make you effective. And in a world that rewards effectiveness, virtue without power is just weakness in disguise. So what do? You become strategic. You develop your skills until you're undeniable. You set boundaries and enforce them without apology. You stop seeking approval and start demanding respect. You make decisions based on reality, not on how you wish things were. You become the kind of man who doesn't get walked over, because you're too strong to be pushed, too clear to be manipulated, too strategic to be outmaneuvered. That's what Machiavelli meant by being a prince. Not royalty, but sovereignty. Over your own life, over your own decisions, over your own destiny. Machiavelli saw something most men spend their entire lives refusing to see. He saw that the world doesn't care about your potential. It doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about results. And the men who produce results are the men who understand power. Not the fantasy version of power, the real version, the uncomfortable version. The version that requires you to be strong when you'd rather be liked, to be clear when you'd rather be vague, To be decisive when you'd rather avoid conflict. That's the path. Not to cruelty, to strength. And once you walk it, you'll never see the world the same way again. The question is, are you ready? Or will you stay comfortable? Most men choose comfort, but you're still here. So maybe you're different. If this woke something up inside you, if you felt the truth in what Machiavelli saw, hit that subscribe button, smash that like, because here at the Hidden Codex, we don't teach you what to think. We show you what was hidden, the wisdom they buried, the truths they feared. Next time, we'll explore the shadow work of Carl Jung and why confronting your darkness is the only path to real power. You won't want to miss that. Until then, stay sharp, stay sovereign, stay dangerous.